to share something with you. That might put me in a very negative light, yeah.
Relationships are not my forte.
See if someone grabbed up my wife or something, completely different ballgame.
I'll walk away from here, and this has been like a therapy session.
Old geezer. Right.
This is Umar Ahmed Fry, FLTV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. Well, what a weekend that was in London. An incredible fight between two monsters, Frank. I think we knew Beterbiev was a beast, but we can now say Anthony Yarde, your man, is a beast as well.
Well, I thought he'd done extremely well. You know, I never got people who were just writing him off. I've always said he's a good fighter from day one. You know, when we see him, when I first met him and see some of the footage of his amateur fights, I mean, he only had, was it 12? I was convinced then he didn't come in with any gold medals or massive experience in the amateurs, and we worked hard. And it's you know, it's a thing as well. You know, get a bit of criticism going around about, you know, fighters when they start off about the opponents and the matches they get. You know, it depends what experience they have. They're all different. And in Anthony's case, we needed to gain him experience. And I think if he'd have had a bit more amateur experience, which he would have, I think it would have stood him in good stead. I mean, when he's had 12 amateur fights, and Beterbiev has had 300. You know, and obviously good grounding. But I thought it was a magnificent fight. I thought he was absolutely, the courage he showed, the skill he showed. He hurt him a couple of times, wobbled him a couple of times. They both got cut. They both, I mean, you knew they'd both been in a fight. We're looking at them afterwards, you know, and it was just I just thought it was an amazing fight. It was like a throwback fight. That was, I think, that fifth round was a bit like a Tommy Hearns, Marvin Hagler type of fight. The way they stood there, letting the bombs go, and he did well. You know, you know, George. I watched George's interview afterwards on BT, and there was like a pendulum sort of type of fight for a while, but he'd done well, and he was in front. And I made him in front, and the two judges that made him in front were both neutrals. They weren't British or Americans, and the American judge obviously had him in front. But I thought he'd done extremely well, and had it been somebody else another time, he'd be world champion. I mean, if he'd have been in there with Joe Smith, he'd have been world champion.
In terms of Artur Beterbiev, you're talking about, as you said, one of the best amateur fighters from this generation, an emphatic professional, 100% knockout ratio, perfect record. Anthony Yarde, as you always say, 12 amateur fights, 26 professional fights. Really, on paper, he shouldn't have even been in that ring. So yes, he's a special human being, Anthony Yarde.
He is. He's had two world title fights with that limited experience, you know. And the first one he learned from, and this one, it was a very, very tough fight. And sometimes you're in a place where you need, you know, if it had been another champion, you know, like had, you know, maybe a Joe Smith or somebody like that, you know, he would have. I really would have fancied him to have won the fight and then gain more experience before you get up against somebody like Beterbiev. But he fought in a final eliminator with Lyndon Arthur, and he done a job on him, and that's how he got the fight. And he was determined to go through with it. And he's 31, but he's a very young 31. But it was a magnificent fight and a magnificent effort from him. And you know, Tundi got it dead right what he did. He got that absolutely right, and you've got to take your hats off to him for what he did.
Well, we do see sometimes fighters perhaps get a little bit of a softer touch when they get to the world titles. You still got to beat your man in front of you and win the world title, but that does happen in this sport. But with Anthony Yarde, he's taken on two all-time light heavyweight greats, both Russian as well. He's not done it the easy way.
No, he certainly hasn't. But you know, he's gained a lot of respect now from it, and I know Beterbiev and Bob Barron's, but it says that has been the toughest fight he's ever had. So that tells you a lot about Anthony, and he did hurt him. He hurt him a couple of times, but he's a tough guy, Beterbiev, and he's an extremely good fighter. Extremely good fighter.
What does it say about Anthony's bottle and the willpower he has, that he was willing to stand in front of Artur Beterbiev and have a war with him? He wasn't clinching, holding on.
No, well, I mean, that first round he came out and he was throwing some nice jabs, and then he caught with three really good left hooks, one after another. And I thought, whoa, this is it. And I said he's a better boxer than people give him credit for, and he showed that. But look, it is in some ways down to experience. It's also, you know, he jumped up a level from where he's been, but now he's shown he's world class. And I know he got stopped, but having said that, you know, he was, as I say, he was in front, and he proved that he's in that company. He proved at the end of the day, you know, despite the limited experience he's had in some, you know, as amateur, etc., that he deserves to be there. I mean, you know, he is he's a nice guy, a really nice guy, and he works very hard. You only got to look at him, see how hard he works, and you know, he's done himself proud. There's no doubt about it.
Some of the shots that were landing from both men sound like bullets going off. I mean, they're in the light heavyweight division, but I think there's a lot of heavyweights probably who couldn't have taken both of their shots. They've both got great chins.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they did. They took. I mean, they was taking both of them taking really good shots, and you know, it was just it was so. You know, I mean, you was on the edge of your seat watching it. I was on the edge of the seat at home watching it. I had to go. I went home and I wound up watching it on TV at home. But it was bloody hell. If I'd have been there, I'd have probably gone over.
Yeah, of course, you did attend, Frank. Do you want to just quickly address why you had to go home?
I've just got this. My doctors told me categorically I shouldn't do anything till the end of February. You know, I got with the operation that I had, and but I wanted to be there because I wanted to. You know, he's our man. Same as I shouldn't have gone to Tyson's fight, but I went. And anyway, I did struggle a bit, and those seats were. I mean, it's pretty nippy in there. They didn't put the heating on Wembley. We're getting onto them again today about that, and those seats are not very comfortable, especially when you get my age, I say, my arse even. It's a bony arse I've got. And so they weren't very comfortable. No, so, you know, I didn't feel too good. So I was Francis, George, Henry told me I've got to go home. And my doctor actually was at the fights and he told me to sod off home. So blocked me for being there. So that was that.
Well, probably for your heart pressure and your blood pressure, it was probably best that you watched that at home.
But I was so, you know, I was thrilled for him in some ways and obviously gutted in others because obviously you want Anthony to win, but he absolutely done himself and British boxing proud.
Do you think he becomes one day he becomes world champion, Anthony Yarde? Is that certain?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, I don't want to see him in fights like that, but you know, he's a young 31, and it's, you know, I'm convinced he can do it. I mean, you know, I don't know if he's going to fight Bivol, whether they're going to unify those belts, but you know, something will happen, and you know, and in the meantime, Anthony needs a break after a tough fight like that, but then come back, and then we'll see how the land lies and basically what he and Tunde want to do.
And have you seen a major improvement since that first world title shot against Karol?
Yeah, absolutely. Paced himself better. He paced himself. I mean, the last fight, he was chasing him and you know, and it was like, sort of, for want of a better expression, it was shit or bust in that round when he went out and he sort of punched himself out. This one, he was taking his time more. It'll come.
And as you said about the stoppage, I think corner pulling him out, I mean, that could allow Anthony to fight for another day and perhaps get
you know, look, you know, you've got to make a judgment, and as he said, the people around him care about him. Whatever, you know, he got all these, you know, all the criticism and the bits and pieces out of it, but Tunde cares for him. He really does, and he showed that in that fight. That was a really sensible decision by the corner.
Mind you, Anthony, even though he was hurt at that point, he has tremendous bottle. He didn't want to quit. He still wanted to go.
No, I mean, look, you can always think if it wasn't stopped, you know, would he have recovered like he got clipped a couple of times in the fight and come back? He, you know, fourth round he came back. Who knows? But it's better to be safe than sorry sometimes. I'm
sure over the last 48 hours since the fight, it has been going through your head possibly what Anthony could do next. Obviously, he needs a rest, but is he going to stay at that world level now? Yeah, I mean, he's not, you know, he's that if he, you know, whatever he wants to do, obviously we'll support him. But if he wants to, I'm sure he does. I know he wants to fight. So I spoke to him yesterday. But yeah, that's where he's at. He's world class, and he's shown. I mean, it's a big audience. You know, that was shown live in the States and many countries around the world, and that was a really, you know, no one
I thought he would really give him a fight, and I genuinely felt that, you know, if he got his tactics right, I felt he could have won the fight before the fight. That is, but I thought, you know, on the night the better man won. And I'm not going to say take that away from him, but he certainly showed that he's in that class. He gave him a tough fight. You only had to look at both of them after the fight. You had to look at Beterbiev and you see his face. You know what he took, the punishment he took.
You mentioned Joe Smith Jr. there. I mean, he's with Top Rank. Could you make that fight maybe next for Anthony?
I'm going to speak to Bob about it. That'd be a great fight to make. Yeah, that'd be a great fight. I mean, listen, that's my opinion. I'm sure his people have got his management, whatever. They got a different opinion, but that'd be a great fight to make.
And we have got a lot of top class light heavyweights in Britain as well. Joshua Buatsi was doing the pundit with BT. I was actually quite surprised to see him on BT.
Yeah, they booked him in, didn't they? I see him. You know, I was, a bit like me. I was a bit surprised to see him on there, but he was on there and he done a good job. Him and Denzel was, I thought, done quite well as well.
Could that be a fight next?
It's something to consider. I think, you know, he's got to look at all the options and see what can be done. But that could be an option.
And just lastly, just away from Anthony, obviously it's great to see a pound for pound great in Artur Beterbiev come to the UK and defend his title.
Yeah.
You look back in a couple of years to say that you staged that fight and you had him here fighting in your town on your show. You must be proud of that.
Well, you know, we got behind Anthony. I've always been a believer in him. We just try and look. You can't always do it. Especially when you're a challenger. Sometimes it's very difficult to get the home advantage. But we done our best, and we managed to secure that for him, and we try to do everything we can to stack the odds in his favour. But I was, as I said, I was very proud of him. I was absolutely proud of what he did. I mean, you know, and more importantly, he should be proud of himself.
His ability to take shots, Beterbiev, and then regroup and come back was just
yeah. He's got good resilience. He showed it, and and he's a good boxer. He's good, but he's very good at what he does when he gets in the corner. He slips. He turns in the corner. He's very smart what he does. But he's got a wealth of experience. You know, as I repeat myself, a massive amateur experience, and that was his 19th pro fight. But that massive experience he's got has stood him in good stead.
Do you think, apart from Beterbiev and Bivol, you've got the best light heavyweight in the world in Anthony?
Yeah.
And maybe if it wasn't them two, Beterbiev or Bivol in that ring, you would have knocked anyone out that night. Yeah,
look, I've got to be honest. That performance, you've got to fancy him against any of the others. I mean, you know, let them. You know, those two. Hopefully, they're going to get it on. And there's, you know, the 4 belts are on the line, and we'll see what all happens. And all Anthony's got to do is to keep busy and keep winning.
And just to
see what happens.
Just to close off on him, is he okay, Anthony? How's he doing?
He's very disappointed, and I said, you know, and I sort of spoke with him for a while yesterday, and I spoke to Tunde. He's very disappointed because he's got a lot of pride, and he's, you know, he wants to be a winner, and I get that. But as I said to him, you know, don't you worry about that. You've done I'm going to keep repeating myself. You've done yourself proud, and he did.
Right, let's talk about the undercard. We had obviously the Itauma brothers. Let's unfortunately start with Karol. A bit of a shocker, Frank. What happened there?
I don't know. I mean, I watched it again. I watched that. He was getting caught. He got caught early on with the right hands, and it was. He just got caught, and he got caught a couple of times. And I think that. Well, I just was quite surprised, but that's what happened. You know, he got beat, and maybe 9 fights going into. You know, a championship or that type of fight. Maybe it might have been a bit soon. At the end of the day, that's down to me. But I think, you know, hopefully he'll learn from it. I'm sure he will, and he's got to regroup and come back. He's got us behind him. We're with him, and we'll make sure that we do the best we can for him. I think he can regroup. He's a young guy, and he's 9 fights. It's not the end of the world to get beaten. I've seen that over the years, plenty of guys, and he's a class fighter, and I'm sure he can come back from it stronger, even stronger.
On a more positive note, his brother Moses' emphatic professional debut.
Yeah, he's a bit of a handful. I mean, that's the first guy he's fought who's over the age of 17. that's the truth of the matter. Up until then, he's been fighting. He's been fighting as a junior. He's the world junior champion, and he's gonna, and he went with that. I fancied him big time to win the fight, but he went into that fight, I think, with a bit of a, as he said himself, he's obviously very upset that his brother had got beaten, and you could see the effects on him before the fight. He looked very sort of, felt for his brother. You could see that, and but he got on with his business, and now and obviously he'll fight again in March.
Yeah, we'll come on to that show in Telford in a bit. How were the ratings from BT? Have you had any feedback?
I haven't yet. I haven't seen anything yet. But I think it was their highest ranked show. That's what I heard, but I don't know what the actual numbers were.
Okay. Let's just talk about your upcoming schedule that you've got. Obviously, 17th of Feb at York Hall with David Adelaide and Mark Chamberlain in big fights. And then we move from York Hall to Saudi Arabia, 26th, Sunday, 26th of Feb. Enjoyed that altercation between Jake and Tommy in the ring on Saturday.
Yeah, I watched it again. I was watching it at home. It was hilarious. I think it was, Tommy. Obviously Tommy's with us, and we worked hard to keep. Well, my son George has worked hard to get that fight on for him and that opportunity, because it's fallen apart a couple of times for various reasons, but he kept it together. And I think him and Nikita worked hard to get the fight on. And I thought Jake Paul was, he's hilarious. He's a funny guy. He's a good promoter, and it's a quite an intriguing matchup for the. I mean, when you look at what went on with Anthony Yarde and Arthur, you think yourself, bloody hell. And then you're looking at these guys are going to have an 8-round fight, but it's caught everybody's imagination, and it's going to be quite interesting. A lot of people fancy Jake Paul. I mean, I fancy Tommy, but a lot of people fancy Jake Paul to win it. Do
we just have to treat it as two novices evenly matched, and they've just got massive profiles?
I think they got massive profiles, which has enabled them to make a lot of money from this fight, and they're cashing in on what they do, what on that, and you can't blame them. I can't stand in the way. I mean, it's life-changing money, so how can you stand in the way of letting it happen? And he's taken a professional boxing license out now, Jake Paul. So he is a professional. He has a license, so they're just going to get it on. It's going to, after all this, what's gone on over the months or the last year. It's let's see who's going to come away as a winner. I mean, it's captured the public imaginations. I think the little confrontation had over 1 million views already on YouTube. So people are very, very interested in it.
And of course, the Saudi Arabia time zone, live on BT Sport box office in the UK, it'll align, so it shouldn't affect fights.
Yeah.
And then moving from Saudi Arabia then to Telford, March 25th. As you said, Moses Itauma will make his second professional fight that night as well. And then, got a stacked card in Telford on the 25th. Yeah,
some good fights on there. I mean, there's, Nathan Heaney's in with Jack Flatley. That's a good fight. I'm looking forward to that. It's a title fight. And Andrew Kane's fighting, I've got to pronounce his name. Is it Inuos? Batuto, whatever. What's his name? Baluta. Sorry, apologies to him. Baluta. He's fighting him, but that's a good fight. I'm really looking forward to that. Andrew's one of our top young prospects, and the other guy, he comes to fight. He's a good fighter, and there's a bit of needle between the two of them. So I think that's going to be something a little bit special. And we got Raven Chapman on there. She's having her 6th fight, which again I'm looking forward to. We've got four title fights on there, and also Jason Cunningham. So it's a really good show. And also we've got Moses on there.
Yeah,
because we're going to take him around the country, so he'll be having another fight on there.
Frank, just a couple of more things, please. I take it there's been no update yet on Fury Usyk.
No, not yet. We're working hard on it, and it will happen. It will happen. Everybody's wants it to happen. Who's involved in it, and it will happen. And we're just working out basically where it's going to take place. That's really it. It.
Anything on Joyce?
Joe will fight on April the 15th at the Copper Box. He'll defend his title.
Okay. All right. Do you think we'll learn of an opponent this week?
You certainly will.
Okay, great to hear.
As soon as we get the contract back, obviously we'll have a press conference and get it up and rolling.
And just a last one from me, matters away from Queensbury. Seen Eubank Jr.'s team considering to appeal the loss against Liam Smith because of an elbow, they're saying. What do you think?
Listen, he got beat. Stop all that nonsense. You should give that appeal the elbow. It's just a nonsense. It's a total nonsense. He got beat by the better man on the night, and that's the end of it. And he was the better man. He was the better man before the night.
Frank Warren, thank you very much for talking to IFL TV. Do you want to just give a last sort of statement about Anthony Yarde's performance on the weekend?
Again, I know as you get old, you do start repeating, but he should be absolutely proud of what he did. It was great night. The result was unfortunate, but it was a great night and a great fight for boxing. Fantastic fight. And I don't think that's going to be, it's not a contender for Fight of the Year. I think that will be Fight of the Year.
I'm going to share something with you. That might put me in a very negative light, yeah.
Relationships are not my forte.
See if someone grabbed up my wife or something. Completely different ballgame.
I'll walk away from it, and this has been like a therapy session.